Hey folks, welcome to the channel, and in this case it's going to be the best survival knives at any price range. We're going to go from $5, actually I think I paid $3 for some of these, up all the way to $500 or whatever it is that these things cost these days. As always, if you want to learn more about survival and preparedness, remember that knowledge, skill is always going to be far more important than any specific tool that you have. For that I recommend the channel. For that I also recommend my books, Surviving the Economic Collapse and specifically Survival Skills, where I cover a ton of practical survival skills for emergencies, for disasters, for life, everything from EDC, and yes, including knives and survival kits as well. There's chapters dedicated for your home survival kit, your house survival kits, your EDC. And talking about EDC, I firmly believe that instead of putting together a little survival tin kit, or even your home survival kit, which I absolutely believe you should have, if you do something as simple as have a tiny Victorinox Classic or Manager, or one of these models in your keychain, along with a flashlight, this is by far a lot more likely to save you or be of extreme use during an emergency when nothing else is available than whatever else we end up talking about here. All of these things are super important, but this is your absolute basic minimum that you should go for, because this is far more likely to be with you when you need it. And if you want to go an extra step, you probably want to add a proper knife to your pocket as part of your everyday carry. Victorinox, maybe even better, a Victorinox Soldier, something you can open single-handed and can actually be used for defending yourself as a last resort tool if you don't have anything else. Personally, I think that a multi-tool is essential. And these days, you don't have to spend a lot of money. These Work Pro, basically copies of Leatherman, giving that the patent has expired, and these are perfectly legal to manufacture, and they do a very good job. These are excellent knives, multi-tools for the money. You have a very decent blade, and yeah, I get it. It is a little bit more bulky, it's a little bit more weight. Again, it's not so much the money. These are very affordable. I'll leave links for some of these things below, especially this one that I know people love. Again, I think it's $20-25. It's more about, oh, it's just too much weight. I've been doing this for so many years, and I still feel that I just don't feel okay without having a multi-tool in my pocket. In my case, it's going to be a Leatherman, but this is perfectly viable as well, all right? Having said all of that, let's get to this. You have a ton of options for survival knives, from $5 to $500, probably even a lot more. But let's get started with the basic, the essential thing you see mentioned so many times, your basic scandi knife, scandi grind knife. It's gonna be your Moras, it's gonna be your Hultafords, it's gonna be a bunch of these knives that you see all over the place, and they are, I mean, man, they're perfectly fine. They're extremely capable for what they are. This is maybe the cheapest knife that I ever bought, and I bought a bunch of them, right? This is a Hultaford's basic, I don't even know the name. It's basically a Hultafords. I bought a bunch of these because I saw them on sale for $3, I believe, back in the day. And yeah, now for $3, I think these are made in China. Honestly, I don't even know where they are. It has something in Sweden over there. Hultafords. Whatever the case is, this is a knife I didn't try to break. I've been using this knife for over 10 years for everything you can imagine. From gardening stuff, prying, picking off dry paint, cutting pieces of copper for school projects for my kids. And by that I mean hammering, literally with a hammer, beating on it to cut metal. And still it goes, right? If you want to see the clean version of this is originally how that thing looked, right? And it's as basic as it gets. It's a small amount of steel inside a very well-made plastic handle, and that's all there is to it. That's really all there is to it. Basic carbon steel. Talking about carbon steel or stainless steel, I feel like throwing up a little bit every time I see some people, and some of these guys are well-known celebrities in the prepper world because they have TV shows or they've been in one reality show or another, and they talk about carbon steel. Oh my God. Every time I hear a survival expert talk about how you want to have a carbon steel knife for your survival knife, it's like saying, yeah, you want to have a car with wheels. No shit. Of course, all steels have some amount of carbon or some degree of carbon and something else may be involved in there so as to give it edge retention, because if not, it's not even steel, okay? You're talking about iron, right? You're talking about something that's not gonna do much good for you. So any carbon steel will do the job if you have the proper blade geometry, and crucial, you have the proper heat treatment. The cheapest carbon steel in the planet will do okay. Will actually do more than okay if you have a proper blade design and a proper heat treatment. There's nothing special about carbon steel in itself. In fact, stainless steel is going to be a little bit more expensive than carbon steel because, yeah, you're looking at something that involves it's more complex in its manufacturing. So yeah, carbon steel is the most basic steel there is. Carbon steel is the cheapest steel there is, and it's still just fine, right? You have excellent knives. You have knives made by some of the best bladesmiths in the world that use basic steels. Essentially, it's more about their art and craft rather than the steel itself. Okay, if you want to go with a more basic Mora, and again, this is $3 or so, $5, maybe a little bit more these days, but you're going into the Mora Clipper territory. Mora knives. These are maybe a step up from this one. These are made in Sweden, and this come in either carbon steel or stainless steel. This one, in fact, is, well, yeah, this one is, as it says there, this is stainless steel, right? There you go. Stainless steel. Oh, that's not a survival knife. That's stainless steel. Well, tell that to damn Mora in Sweden. They do both. They do both because they understand that it's more about the marketing. Probably if it were up to them, they would probably do just stainless steel. Stainless steel is actually better. It has pretty much the same basic cutting capability, the basic same edge retention. There's not going to be a massive difference either way. And it has the big advantage of it's not going to rust. It's going to be a lot more, well, not going to rust, maybe it's not the exact word, because nothing is completely rust-proof. It's just a lot more rust-resistant. And that's something that you want to have, especially in an emergency where these things, and keep in mind, we're talking about a knife that maybe goes into a kit. This may go a very long time unchecked, and you don't want to have the nasty surprise of, oh, it is all rust. It is all orange mess. Okay? No. So stainless steel is, in my opinion, better than carbon steel for survival knives. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with carbon steel. This is in fact carbon steel. This has been rusted so many times because it was left in the garden, it was used for digging, for planting, for anything. And yes, it does rust, but then you can clean it. One of the things you can do is add a little bit of a patina or some vinegar, finished like this, and a little bit of oil, and that will help, but it's no big deal. Having said that, I would rather have a knife that is not rusted than one that is, and that's where the stainless steel thing comes in. If you want to go the cheapest way, it could be this, it could be a Mora. These ones, you can, if you don't like the color, you can just paint it. Whatever you want to do, these things will hold on quite nicely for what they are. It is a tiny knife. It is a very strong knife, and when I talk about survival knives, I mean, it has to cut, it has to poke, but it also has to pry. It has to somewhat take a beating if necessary, and these things will. Maybe but even better for a beating is going to be the heavy duty, a little bit more money, like 15, 20-ish bucks, but still super affordable, and still Mora, still made in Sweden. So you're talking about a great knife nonetheless. It's not super long, but it is very, very tough. These are the heavy-duty versions, and you have the heavy-duty versions of the Hultafors too. These are tough as nails. You can pry a lot with these things, and everything can break eventually, but these things are tremendously durable and tough for all sorts of prying and poking and tests that would probably break a lesser knife in that regard. Okay, one of the models that I do like, and it's really not popular at all from Mora, again going into that 20-ish price range, the all-round or model 731, I think it's, anyway, that's how it used to be known. This is basically the same thing, but long. So this gives you a little bit more reach for batoning. It gives you a little bit more blade, and size does matter. Whatever else is that you saw online so as to feel better, no. Size matters, guys. That's simply the way it is. And if it comes to self-defense, I mean, you don't want to get stuck with any of these things, but this is a little bit of a longer more capable knife in some regards. This is perfectly fine for many things. This is just the same thing, but more. Scandi grind, very good for carving wood, all of the bushcrafting stuff that you want to do, but you have that extra length if you need it for whatever case may be. Going a little bit beyond that, and remember that even in this price range, you have big knives too, like a machete. This is a Tramontina machete. If you look at the utilitarian aspect of it, a lot more of a survival knife that may end up being used for working, for chopping vegetation, for self-defense. Well, you can do very well with this. A basic Tramontina, and again, this is cheapest carbon steel there is in planet Earth. It's just tempered properly, flexible, and it will take a beating. It will hold an edge, okay, but you will have to sharpen it pretty often. Moving on, we have a proper survival knife by a premium manufacturer, a knife made in Sweden. The steel is nothing special. This is $10.95, which is often the case of the fancy SC knives that you pay $200 or $300 for. That's still $10.95. The difference, though, is this being a bayonet intended for military use, it is heat treated so as to have more spring, less edge retention. 55 Rockwell, which means you will have to sharpen it more often. If it's gonna be something that you want to cut more with, this is probably gonna be better. The Moras, the Hultafors, these are proper knives, heat treated for cutting rather than just being intended for beating the crap out of them and prying a lot. This thing will pry a lot. This thing will baton all day long, and it has the length for batoning and doing okay. Again, it's not the largest knife there is, but you have that blade length and it's thick, intended to be more of a sharp pry bar poke thing than a cutting tool, okay? But this is the difference between a survival knife and a chef knife. A chef knife will be super sharp, it's gonna be full flat grind, but if you start beating on it, it will chip, it will break, the tip will break away, and you will not be able to pry much with a chef knife no matter how big that thing is, right? It's likely gonna break, very likely before you get whatever you're going for done, okay? This is something that I strongly recommend. I strongly recommend your Moras in that price range, in the $20-$30 price range, and I'll leave links for all of these things below. This is what I strongly recommend as well. Again, that one is beaten to crap because I actually use that thing quite a bit, but basically it looks somewhat like this. And yes, this is the serrated version, this is the non-serrated version. I prefer the non-serrated version. These serrations do nothing for me. There's serrations that work better, some that work worse. I debated this when designing my own knife, the one that we'll talk about there in a second. I'd rather go without serrations. You know, whatever, your survival knife should be able to chop and go through wood as fast as a good serration. And there's some very good ones, but the disadvantages of having the sharp spine there and the extra weakness and the extra whatever the heck it is, I'd rather not have that. And I've debated, and it was actually quite a thing deciding one way or the other, and I'm happy with the results. Moving on to the 50-ish price range, one of the knives I really like is the BPS knife from Ukraine. These are Ukrainian-made knives, and it is crazy that they managed to do this knife for $40, give or take. It is the knife, it is a leather sheath, and a very nice fire steel. This combo right here is maybe one of the best deals you have in terms of survival knife. Again, I'll leave links for these things below if you're interested. This is the minimalist version of a survival knife. I know that many troops in Ukraine actually carry these, along with Glocks, which is super popular, and even Moras. But this is a proper full tang blade. We're already looking at a full tang knife, which, you know, you have your Glock. It's not a full tang knife. It's actually a narrow short, but it's so well designed with all of this Glock plastic that it's tremendously durable. You'll break the blade before you break the tang in this thing. But this is proper full tang blade, a full tang knife. It is just thick enough to be, you know, what I would still consider a survival knife. If it's thinner than this, I don't know, man. It's gonna be a little bit, but this is gonna be tough, durable. It's cheap carbon steel. This is 1066, I believe, 1066 carbon steel, but very well heat treated and with a super utilitarian blade geometry and design. The handle is comfortable, wooden slabs, couple screws. You really don't need a whole lot more. That's basically what you have. barely a little bit of a drop point, clip point thing going on here, and a flat grind, and a thick enough blade to somewhat compensate, a wide enough blade so as to somewhat compensate for this not being maybe as thick as you would like it to be in a survival knife. But I think this is very similar, even though it may not seem. This is very similar to a Glock knife. It is the minimalist version of what you need in a knife, right? For a fighting, a soldier, bayonet, utility knife. This is the minimal thing, stabbing tool. This is the minimal thing in a survival knife that does a little bit of all of these things I was just saying. We move on. One of the knives that is super popular in this range is going to be the Cold Steel SRK knife. This is something that Cold Steel came up with in the civilian world first, then was adopted by the military, super popular among the military guys, especially in the US where these are affordable. 50, 60-ish, sometimes less, sometimes more. I would go with the stainless steel version. This is an older, made in US, made in USA, carbon 5 version, which now is a collectible. So yeah, you're not going to use this, but the blade geometry is there. It's nothing that's been invented. This is basically a Bowie clip point outdoors knife. It's basically like a K-bar in many ways, but it's been extremely successful, now used by the Navy SEALs, buds. This is what they get. So yeah, this is something that I strongly recommend in that price range. Maybe the best knife in that 50-ish, 60-ish price range. Moving on to more expensive stuff. There's a lot, but this is the one that I designed for Aitor. This is 150-ish, 160-ish dollar range. I leave their links below. This is the knife I designed for Aitor in Spain. These are made in Spain, which already, at least for me, means quite a bit. It's not one of these, these are super tactical, but they're made in Taiwan, right? Now, I like things that are made in Austria. I like things that are made in Sweden. I like definitely knives that are made in Spain. And it's not just that, it's the steel. It's Bowler N680 steel, which is excellent steel. The idea was to make a very, very tough knife, right? Make a knife that has a good edge and has a steel that will have nice edge retention, which this thing does. I like the idea of the recurve blade for a number of things. Maybe it's a little bit more of a specialist survival knife, but it is the one I've always wanted to design, and I got the chance to do that. So you have the hammer, the pommel there for hammering, full tang, of course, nice thick blade. The point is maybe not as fine as a clip point, but it's definitely going to be tough as nails. And this is something you can dig into whatever you want. The chances of you breaking that tip are very rare, and it's still, I think I got that Goldilocks point that I was going for, that I really wanted. It's so difficult, which is it has all of the penetration that you want, and it has all of the durability that you want. Finding that sweet spot between one and the other, because you can make this like a super fat tip and it's gonna be unbreakable, right? Even though, as we all know, everything can eventually break, but it will have no penetration. This has nice penetration, and yet it's kind of tricky to get the exact shape there in the camera. It's a little bit deceiving. Maybe that's a little bit more of a, it goes through things nicely and still being very fat there in the tips, so you can drill anyway. This is what I want to make. And not only that, it comes with an excellent sheath, which has a second knife, a tiny Skinner knife within, which is pretty cool. Yeah, a little bit more of a upper price range, but I think it's worth it if you want to have this sort of thing. A little bit beyond that price range, in the 200-ish, 230 and so, you have Falkniven. Excellent knife. Again, all of these are great at what they do. I throw mine in there because, of course, I designed the thing. So, of course, I like it. It's what I wanted. But in any of these, from $5 to 20 to 30, these are all knives I strongly recommend. And in this price range, the one I strongly recommend is, of course, Falkniven. Falkniven has been making some excellent knives over the years. This is laminated VG10. I'm not as convinced that laminated is better. In fact, I feel that my steel and the heat treatment that Aitor does makes for a better knife in terms of edge retention and certainly for toughness. N680, which is what Aitor is using, is extremely tough. It is super stainless, especially in salted water, and you will very much have a very hard time getting this thing rusted. Yeah, good luck with that. But it's also very durable and at the same time has quite a bit of edge retention. This is somewhat of the same thing. I liked it better when it was all VG10. Now they go with this laminated thing. In my opinion, it's more about cutting costs and only having the expensive steel in the center and having the cheaper stainless steel on the sides. Whenever I see these things destroyed in these destruction tests, it's usually going to be on the laminated part that it separates. Still a premium survival knife, and mostly not because of anything in terms of steels and whatnot, but the design of the blade. As you see, it is very close to your SRK, maybe even improved on with that convex grind that it has and the hammer pommel there. You can hammer with it, and being stainless steel and whatnot. A little bit better finish. These are excellent knives, guys. These are no joke, excellent survival knives. And as we move on, we have maybe some of the fancier stuff. In my case, it's gonna be Bussy. This is the Team Gemini Light Brigade. It went from the Walking Dead, you know, the zombie TV series. Well, this is what Daryl used. Well, this is Team Gemini Light Brigade by Bussy. An excellent knife, even though, you know, being a little bit critical in terms of sharp edges somewhere here in the G10, and the handle is okay, but it could be better, and I'm not much of a fan of the choil thing, but you're basically looking at a big fat survival knife made of Infi steel, which is tremendously durable. Now, I've seen the same videos you've seen in terms of destruction tests, and over the years you realize that yes, Infi is fine. Yeah, maybe it's more than fine, maybe it's very good steel. The real trick is blade geometry and heat treatment. These things are fat. These things have a lot of metal in them. That's why they're so tough. And of course, if you compare it with a big, thick knife that is heat treated to something that has even better edge retention, but not as durable when it comes to impact and so on, in terms of toughness, sure, that's pretty impressive. There's another version from this one, and you're talking about $500. Is it worth it? I will say that no. I probably will say that no, really. But in that regard, you have something that is exactly the same thing. This is the Basic 6 Psycho. This is the same company, actually. Bussy has Psycho, Bussy Combat, and Scrapyard. It's all the same. It's all the same company. But as you see, it's the same blade, but just cut a little bit different and just removing a little bit metal here and there, and that's what you end up with. But the handle in this is so much more comfortable than this one. I like the guard here, but I like the handle here a lot better. This is maybe one of the more premium survival knives. Heavy, big knife, very tough. You can beat this thing all day long. It's very unlikely that you will end up breaking it. Not a fan of the choil, but there was no option to not go with it, so yeah, choil it was. But yeah, great knife. Guys, as you see, you have a ton of options available in the market, from $5 to as far as you can go. And yeah, pick whatever works best for you and work with your budget. These are fine, but keep in mind, when it comes to prying and that sort of thing, maybe this is the minimal I would look to spend in a survival knife. Again, leaving the links for these ones below in Amazon. I'm sure they're still there. But these ones, when I got them for like $3-5, dude, buy 10 of them. They're definitely something that eventually will get used, and it will be there. It will be working perfectly fine the day you need it. And yeah, this is the one I designed and I like a lot, so this is probably my go-to option. But you go with whatever of the many options that I just showed you here works best for you. Take care.